What we're suggesting is to get rid of the screens as much as possible and to make summer a completely different time for your kids.
Yeah.
And like you said, what we're proposing today is not necessarily the easier road at first. And it might not be the most joyful road at first. But what we have seen when we do this in our family and in other families that have done it as well, when you push through, okay, we're going to create this new habit. When you push through it, kids adapt quicker than we think. And what ends up happening is quite amazing.
If you are the parent of any child 0 to 18 years of age, maybe even older, this podcast is for you.
Maybe even older.
I just want everyone to know you don't get to check out on this one. Every parent has got to listen to this because summertime is almost upon us here. And, the kids are off of school. Maybe even the college kid is back at home.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It could be even for parents older than 18.
Yes.
Because I was thinking, well, 18, the kid's an adult now. But actually, the kid coming home from college in the summer or who's still living at home and working and doing college, it doesn't mean that you can't have boundaries even on them.
Yeah. And
because we're talking about boundaries at home is what we're talking about.
Well, we're talking about a specific boundary.
Right.
And here's the specific boundary. This summer, we want to encourage you this summer to help your family say no to screens. Screens dominate so much of life. And all of us, that technology is not neutral. It is designed in ways to keep you on it, to keep you hooked. I mean, sometimes at 2 a.m, I'll find Erin doom scrolling through social media.
That is not true. I am always asleep by 2 a.m.
Okay. All right. Well, point is, none of us is immune, not even the great Erin Kunkel. And so say no to screens. And we know as parents, right? A lot of us know that. I think we have to be reminded that it's easy to default to the screens.
Yeah.
It's easy to get into the car and it to be a chaotic kind of day and you're just trying to get somewhere and the 3-year-old or maybe the 13-year-old are whining and moaning and complaining and I'm bored and it's just like, here's the cell phone or here, turn on the TV that's in the car or watch a movie or things like that.
Well, because we are parents still of kids who live at home, we know that what comes with summer is more free time for kids. And so what you're describing, these situations happen and there isn't homework to do in the summer. Sometimes there isn't the sports as much as there is during the school year. So obviously kids have more free time in summer. And so the easy thing can be for kids to get up in the morning and turn the TV on, or kids to get up in the morning and doom scrolling on their phones.
Yeah, get on the computer.
Because they don't have to get up and go somewhere necessarily.
Yeah. So say no to the screens, but when we say no to something, we also want to say yes to something else. In fact, every no is a yes. And in some ways, every yes is also a no. So there's a flip side of this, and this is where we want to help guide our kids to fill that time that might otherwise be on technology with other productive things, things that are going to be better for their souls, right? And look, this is where we have to remember it takes time to develop habits. And not to get discouraged when the first day of summer rolls around and you're like, we are resetting. We're not bringing out the screens. And then there's just the moaning and the
Yes.
complaining and the bad attitudes. Okay, expect that because
Yes.
children are sinners.
Well, expect that because this is the default for our time and place. This is what kids are going to be pulled towards. So nothing's wrong.
And kids are sinners.
Not
Let's just emphasize that
That's
theological point as well.
This is true. We all are sinners, and nothing's wrong with your kid, and you certainly are not
there's
alone.
something wrong with their kid. Their kid is a sinner.
In particular, there might not be something wrong with our listeners' children. That isn't wrong with all children and all of us.
Thank you for that clarification.
And you certainly are not alone, parent, if you are struggling with how to manage screens in the summer.
Yes.
And so what we are suggesting is not that you have all these scheduled times throughout the day. Okay, you can have an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, and then you have to regulate that. We're not suggesting that. Actually, what we're suggesting is to get rid of the screens as much as possible and to make summer a completely different time for your kids.
Yeah.
And like you said, what we're proposing today is not necessarily the easier road at first. And it might not be the most joyful road at first. But what we have seen when we do this in our family and in other families that have done it as well, when you push through, okay, we're going to create this new habit. When you push through it, kids adapt quicker than we think. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is quite amazing because of all the things that we say yes to instead of. And I think that even we're going to say no to this, kids, but we're going to say yes to all this other stuff. That is how I would propose it to the children.
Yeah. And just a reminder for all of us, right? The things that end up being more significant, the things that are more fruitful in our lives are always the harder things. And it's just that general principle of life that there's a lot of sowing that is done before the reaping of the harvest. And so in the same way, it may take you a good month to get into this rhythm, but by the end of the summer, if you've said no to the screens for a significant amount of time, if you're able to push it more to the margins of life rather than being so central to family life, at the end of the summer, you will reap a reward from that. And we've had this, some of these reflections where you work hard to keep your kids off the screen, and down the road you look back and you're like, gosh, okay, this is satisfying. Our 13-year-old boy, adolescent boy, right, is not asking us for a smartphone every other day, right? He's not, and again, this doesn't mean we don't have challenges with him. In fact, we've been talking specifically over the last couple of weeks about helping him manage the use of the laptop that he has. And so we're in this battle. And I think with the screen battle, we just need to remember it's going to be an ongoing challenge. So summer ends up being a really good time to kind of reset, kind of kick off some good habits, and help them to say yes to other good things. Yeah. But the question is then, all right, what are the kinds of things we want to help them say yes to? So
as summer is here and all of us are pretty much full swing in it now. So I think it's the things we want to say yes to are things we're going to invite our kids to do instead of having screens. And so I think the things we're going to talk about, just to preface it, these are things, unless your kids are teeny tiny and you can't really have a conversation, I would bring your kids into the conversation of, hey, this is what we want to do in the summer. And we kind of want to fill our summer with really good things. Here's some of our ideas of things you can do. And then you can get ideas from your kids as well.
Okay, so you're recommending maybe a family meeting?
Yeah, I mean, that's how we've traditionally done it because it is helpful for your kids to adjust their expectations. When you throw something on your kids and they don't automatically do what we want them to do, if we haven't given them any fair warning, of course their expectation is going to be, we're going to keep doing things the way we've been doing.
Yeah, I think that's great. And we have done that. We have done those family meetings.
Yeah.
And at the very least, what it does is it maybe helps to recalibrate expectations.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity for communication with the kids.
I mean, even as young as 4 and 5, saying to them at breakfast or dinner one night, hey, starting tomorrow, when we get up in the morning, we're not going to turn on the TV. So don't ask to turn on the TV. Instead, these are the things we're going to do in the morning. And if you ask to turn on the TV, mommy's going to say no. Yeah. So even that young, to just give kind of fair warning. And then when they ask, because they will, because it's been a habit, you say, oh no, remember, we're not watching TV anymore during the day. Now we're doing other things.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've tried to kind of categorize, because there's so many different activities. And what we thought would be helpful was, all right, let's put these into 4 or 5 kind of major categories. I think we came up with 4. And these, maybe it's helpful to think in these larger categories, because then there's all kinds of ideas underneath those larger categories. So here's the first category to help your kid say yes to. And that category is the outdoors.
Yes. Go outside.
Push your kid outside. Now, of course, one of the huge benefits, I mean, just thinking about this theologically, one of the huge benefits is you get your kid outside, you get them into the natural world, not just the natural world, but created order, the created world. And that's good for their souls, because we know the scripture tells us that Romans chapter 1, verses 19 and 20, God's existence is revealed. His nature and attributes are revealed through what has been made. Psalm 19:1 says the heavens declare the glory of God. So getting outside, climbing a tree is good for your soul, because you're getting in touch with God's creation. So there's theological reasons even for that. But when you do push your kid outdoors, a lot of it's going to be free play, but I can just imagine a kid, you push the kid outside, and maybe they haven't been outside much. They haven't been doing as much outside. They've been inside on their devices. So then their response is going to be, I don't know what to do. So what are some ideas, Erin, for the parent when the kid says, I don't know what to do outside, it's so boring?
Yeah. Well, if your kid says that simply is them telling you they haven't had enough time outside. And so that is a clear indicator, mom and dad, that you are heading in the right direction. If they say there's nothing to do outside, it just means they haven't spent enough time outside to figure out all the things that there is to do. And there are things to do outside no matter where you live. If you live in the city, if you live in the country, if you live in the suburbs, there's things to do outside. There are birds in your neighborhood that live in your neighborhood. There are trees, there are parks, there's open spaces, there's swimming pools, there's all kinds of things to do. So,
and I think we also need to think about it of no matter where you live, but also no matter what age your kids are. Because now it's probably a little bit easier with the younger ones, but we're saying this even with the older ones as well.
Yes.
Because the teens, this may be even more challenging with the teens, like go outside.
Well, again, it can be if they have not been habituated in doing that. If they're not used to, okay, let's get out of the house, go outside, play pickleball, ride a bike,
okay, so give us the ideas. Okay, these are the ideas. I want to get explicit. Here are some ideas. So you just mentioned pickleball.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a good, so different sports and activities.
Sure. And so some of this might require, hey, maybe we should invest some of our money in getting some things the kids can do outside. So we have, well, speaking of pickleball, we have a pickleball net that the kids put out in the street and paddles and stuff so they can play. There's also courts. I think everywhere in the world now has pickleball courts
Yeah.
because it's so popular.
Well, we get the full on net.
Yeah.
I mean, I forgot how wide it is, and you just set it up in the street. The kids take chalk and they create their own pickleball court, and it's the teenagers, that are doing it, and they'll grab some of the other teen kids in the neighborhood and play pickleball.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of different sports.
We've done. We're kind of a soccer family. Kids play soccer, so we've had
nets.
little soccer nets and have played little games of 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 in the backyard with the kids.
So bikes, all kinds of things like that. Chalk is a great outdoor tool for kids to have. It's very cheap to
Probably
buy.
going to be the younger ones. I can't imagine your 17-year-old daughter is going to go out with chalk.
No, but they draw the pickleball court with it. But yes, I mean, our granddaughters use the chalk for drawing in our driveway, and it hoses off easy. So it's a wonderful tool. So for small kids, things like spending your money on outdoor things can look like chalk or bubbles or bug catcher nets, or maybe a magnifying glass and a shovel for them to dig in the dirt and look for bugs. Maybe it's a small nature guide book for the birds in your area and them looking for going outside and finding a bird and then finding it in the nature.
So maybe a
nature
pair of binoculars.
Yeah, binoculars. Oh yeah, that's another thing. So thinking about buying some of these outdoor tools can help the kids with, hey, there's some tools to use to do different things outside. And this can help them when you kick them out of the house, as you should do, and kind of say to them, hey, figure out some things to do. It is helpful sometimes when they have things like that spark ideas for things to do.
And summer's warm, so get some of the water stuff out. Like, you know what? Young kids would be happy with just a hose and a sprinkler, right? And they could have hours of enjoyment.
Or a couple cheap squirt guns. I mean, yeah. So, and it's really hot in some areas. So I know the water stuff becomes more and more important as the summer goes along. So, purchasing some outdoor stuff that your kids would be stoked on or would help give them ideas is one way to say, hey, here's a yes we're going to say to that's something good that will get you outside doing good things.
Yeah. And you don't have to come up with every idea for them. Feel free to just push them outside, tell them you figure it out. And I guarantee you probably in about, 15, 20 minutes, they'll have figured out something.
Yeah.
And so here's the second category. It's reading. One of the things we want our kids to say yes to is reading. And of course, there are all kinds of benefits to this. Number one, reading should be a central part of our educating of our kids. We as believers want our kids to love reading. That's one of the things that's been a goal of ours for our kids, is we want them to leave our home with a love of reading. Obviously, first and foremost, we want them to be readers of God's word. So we want them to develop a love of reading for that reason alone. But so there's this category of reading. So say no to the screen, say yes to reading. And there's all kinds of maybe kind of creative and practical ways we can get them reading. Because I can just imagine some of us hear that and go, oh gosh, it's like pulling teeth to get my kid to read.
Yeah. Some of you are thinking, oh, my kids aren't readers, or one of my kids is a reader, but my other one isn't. Well, reading is something that all people can do and can learn to love.
And should do.
This
is where it's like, we should develop maybe a kind of a deeper theology of reading, and the primary place it should play in our lives.
Yeah.
Because God's word is primarily revealed to us through the written word.
Yeah. And you think about how culture fights against us so much, just in the reading part alone, because our technology, I mean, if you turn off if your kids are watching a show, you turn it off and say, okay, go pick up a book. The shift you have to do from being just constantly stimulated by watching something on a screen to now sitting in quiet and listening and thinking, you're asking a big shift there. And so this might be more difficult for those of you out there who reading is not really a big part of your family, but it's okay. Like I said, it's a habit that anyone can nurture.
Yeah.
And any of your kids can become lovers of books.
Yeah. Well, you talk about turning off the screen, and I'm thinking, okay, this is maybe even more difficult of a shift when you have a teenager who's addicted to social media.
Yeah.
And you're telling them to turn that off and read. So there may be some work, some hard work that we have to put in up front.
Yes. And not all. So technology is a challenge when it comes to reading. The second one is sometimes I'm thinking of the teenagers. So they've finished school and now it's summer and they see books as drudgery and homework. And so depending on what type of school they're in and how the school uses books can oftentimes either nurture a loving in reading for our kids if they're in a school that understands how children learn, or if they're in a school that takes books and dissects them and chews them up and makes it overly analytical and not looking at books as an art, then you're going to have to do some work in convincing your kids. You're not giving them homework. You're trying to nurture in them a love of reading good things. So there's lots of obstacles that can be in the way. Parents of teens, summer is a huge opportunity. It's an opportunity because they get a break from the regular rhythms of life, like school and other obligations, and they have some free time. So be intentional with that free time and get your students some really good worldview training.
Don't miss your opportunity this summer to send your kids to Summit Ministries student conferences. In fact, if you use the code MAVEN25, you'll save $300 off a Summit student conference this summer. Go to summit.org/MAVEN to register your student.
So here's some ideas for making reading a part of your family in the summer. First of all, just make it a part of a daily thing that they do. And so it can, most times it's kind of good to just get some of the good things in the morning. So it might be, hey, teenager, before the phone even gets turned on, we're going to do some reading together, or you're going to spend some time reading and I'm going to help you find good books or whatever.
Yeah. And this is where, as parents, I think we have to sometimes make our kids do the things that are good for them,
which takes courage.
Yeah. And so it could be just you're telling your teenager or your younger kid, okay, you just have to at least read one chapter. And if you've gotten a good fictional book in their hands, what could happen from that is you force them to read a chapter a day, but eventually what might happen is, as they get into the book, as they taste, right, the richness of the book, then they may end up reading a couple of chapters additional on their own.
Yeah.
But it may take you forcing them up front to, okay, at minimum, you got to read one chapter. And it's like with our kids with food, where we're some of our kids haven't liked certain fruits or vegetables. And we said, no, keep eating that. Oh, you're going to take one bite. You're going to eat one strawberry, or you're going to eat one piece of broccoli. And then over time, they develop the taste for it. And now they love it. They enjoy it. And that's how reading can be sometimes too.
Okay, so just thinking about reading, and we'll kind of go through different kid stages depending on who's listening and what kind of stage you're in with your kids. But one thing you want to emphasize is reading on their own. So have a time where they are spending quiet time reading on their own. Now, what about kids who can't read on their own yet? Well, there's a couple options. They can still have time in their room looking at books and enjoying, especially you should have a whole stock of beautiful picture books for your kids.
For the younger kids?
For the younger kids. And this doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You can go to the library and get good books, or you can, like we do, go to used bookstores and Goodwills and get good books. But they can look at books, or of course they can listen to books. And so we are a big Audible family. We listen to books on Audible. We have for a long, long time. So we even have a whole CD set of the Narnia series that Focus on the Family did. And so when our kids were too young to read out loud and we didn't have the time to sit with them at that time, they would listen to books. So listening to books or just looking at books when they're little is good time reading.
And this is where you can also bring in the older siblings. You know, if you've got a combination like we had in our family of older kids and younger kids, the older kids, we would have them read to the younger kids.
Yeah.
And then that's also a way to help the older kids develop a love for reading.
Yeah.
You read a good novel or something to the younger kids, and the older kids get into it. It's like, I mean, it's when I've read to the kids at night. There's been books that I've gotten into because I was reading to the kids that I probably wouldn't have read otherwise.
Yeah. And actually, if you have kids who are arguing a lot or not getting along, having them read a book together could be a really good bonding thing for them to do. And we have seen that. So
another thing we can do is family read alouds.
Yes. So having a family book that you're reading, we've talked about this a lot, but summer is a great time to do this because you have a little more time. And so I could talk for hours about good family read alouds. Should I list it? Well, okay, some of my favorite summer ones.
I think maybe define it a little bit more. You're just talking about, hey, a family sitting down together and someone from the family reading the chapter out loud while everyone listens.
Yeah.
That's a family. Because I'm guessing there's some people out there that they don't know what a family read aloud is.
Yeah. So maybe it's during breakfast and mom or dad are going to read for 20 minutes to start off the day and read a family book. Or maybe it's after dinner, everyone gets popsicles, sits outside, and dad reads the book out loud or mom reads the book out loud. So a book that your family can enjoy together at some point in the day, and each family's going to be different on when it would work.
If the kids have popsicles, is it okay for mom and dad to have a glass of wine? Is that... I'm just trying to help motivate parents here.
The kids have a treat and the parents have a treat.
That's right. The parents might need some motivation here.
So yeah, popcorn, make it fun, but have a family read aloud. And if you pick a good book, your kids will be begging you to read. No, the next chapter, please, please. Especially if you do it before bedtime, they will be begging you because no kids want to go to bed and they'll want to keep reading. And so there's so many great, great books.
Give a couple books that you would recommend right off the top of your head here.
Well, for summer books, I think Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo is one of my favorite books. Charlotte's Web, Trumpet of the Swan, both of those by E.B. White. Understood Betsy is a wonderful book. I pulled some books out just so I wouldn't, because I can be so forgetful. Oh, Mr. Popper's Penguins, Pippi Longstocking. These are great, fun books, especially for kids like 13 and under. They will just love these books. But I love these books still, and I'm in my 40s, so they aren't just for younger kids. But you get what I mean. Wind in the Willows, a wonderful book. Reading through Winnie the Pooh. If your kids have seen the Disney movie Winnie the Pooh, read the actual book Winnie the Pooh. It is so good. Mary Poppins, The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. Of course, the Narnia series. So there's so many great, great books. If you have older kids, read The Hobbit, read Lord of the Rings. So those are just some ideas of books that when you read one chapter, your kids are going to beg you for the next chapter.
Yeah. Okay. And so another idea would be just reading through a book of the Bible together. That could be something you do as a family.
Like books. Saying this summer, we're going to read whatever book and you kind of announce to them, hey, we're going to read through this book of the Bible this summer.
Yep. Here's one thing to help maybe help your older kids to facilitate, but also the younger kids, a book club with friends. And this is where that will, I think, having some of their peers, especially for teenagers, having some of their peers involved in this. And this might be where you just have to kind of coordinate with some other families. Say, hey, we're doing the summer book club. Let's get some families together. Having some allies, having there be some helpful peer pressure. So help your kids organize a book club with friends, or go to your local public library. They often will do summer reading challenges and things like that.
Yeah, where the kids earn a free ice cream cone or something. But
they'll incentivize it in a lot of different ways. Okay, so let's get to the third area where we've got outdoor stuff, we've got reading, and then this third area is skills and hobbies. And let's list kind of just different ideas on this one to give parents ideas on this, because it could be anything from music to woodworking and everything in between.
Yeah. So to help screens stay at bay, maybe you talk to them about, hey, what's something new you want to learn this summer? And maybe it's a musical instrument, or maybe it's a sport they've been wanting to do. Like they haven't played basketball and they want to learn basketball. Okay, well, let's try to find a basketball camp or some kind of basketball thing you can do. Maybe it's through the arts. So maybe it's painting or drawing or photography or something like that.
Yeah, and this is where you might need to make a little investment. Maybe it's an investment in a new set of paintbrushes or new kinds of paints or an easel or things like that. Or it's stuff that you don't necessarily have to make a big financial investment in, but it could be for your younger kids. Hey, mom and dad or grandma and grandpa have kind of this old digital camera that still works and still takes good pictures. Start there. And for younger kids, that could be, the way you get them into some, photography.
Yeah. I thought about gardening. Sometimes, maybe your kids don't really know how to garden or grow anything. So the summer's a great time to go to the local nursery, pick out some plants. They can learn how to plant them and help them to grow.
Cooking is another option.
Cooking is a good one. If your kids are not already in the habit of helping with dinner every night, getting them involved in that, or maybe they want to get involved with making breakfast. And so they want to learn how to make waffles or crepes or something like that. And so you're through the summer saying, okay, what are some things you can learn to make this summer?
Yeah. And this is where dads can, I think, jump in too. And of course, there's a lot of dads that cook, but I'm just thinking specifically, it's summer. It's, the season for grilling or barbecuing.
Yeah.
And I know as a dad, sometimes it's easier for me to do it myself and do it on my own and do it the way I want to do it. But this is where, you pull your kid in and say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to do some barbecue here.
Yeah.
And so cooking is another one. We talked about woodworking, right? So getting them involved in woodworking, sewing, might be another one. Maybe serving in church, maybe taking a skill that they already have, or just going and serving in church and learning a skill that way.
Yep.
There's all kinds of summer programs that a church is doing, and they need volunteers. So getting our kids involved in service. So that's a very short list of the possibilities that are out there.
It's endless, but I think the mindset is, what is something you can learn and can become a skill or a hobby that you start to develop.
Yeah.
And so the kids start to think about not just consuming things all summer, not just
That's right.
having fun, going to water parks, all the things, but they have time where they're learning how to do something, which of course for them is going to instill all kinds of things as far as learning the dignity of learning something like that and having a skill that they know how to do. Being able to contribute, like you think about gardening, cooking, these kinds of things, you can contribute to the family, and
Yeah.
that's needed.
And this is where we bring in our theological reflection as well.
Mhm.
And I think the key word you used there was consuming, right?
Mhm.
We are a consumer culture, and it conditions us to just consume, consume, consume. But we're made in God's image. Part of being made in God's image means we are creators, and that's what God has told us to do. Subdue the earth and rule over it. Be creators. We are sub-creators. And so these kinds of things fit better with our, the way our design, the way we're made
Yeah.
in God's image.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we've got outdoor stuff, we got reading, we've got skills and hobbies. And then the last thing is work.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is sometimes the daily chores. Like we need to have our kids throughout the summer doing daily chores,
Yeah.
staying in the habit of serving the family.
Yeah.
There's these obligations to the family.
Yeah. And my suggestion with the daily chores is that you make that a part of bright and early first, kind of some of the first stuff that you do. And of course, it teaches a lesson that you work before you play. And that's a good lesson of life. But it's also just practical to just get up and do some of the harder things first. And then the afternoon, maybe you're free to go swim at a friend's house or go on a bike ride with somebody or whatever. But the daily chore thing, it should definitely be a part of the summer. The needs of the household don't stop just because it's summer. And so the kids can do more because they do have time. And so daily chores, that kind of work needs to just be a part of the rhythm of the family.
Yeah. And then not only, of course, the work of the family, but even getting a job, even for young ones. Okay. So you got the entrepreneurial ideas like, hey, have the lemonade stand. And our kids have done the lemonade stand. And there's lessons to be learned in that. And there's work to be done. And there's money that can be earned. The pet sitting for the neighbor, lawn care, these kinds of things. So, throw out some entrepreneurial ideas or get your kids to think about, hey, what are needs around the neighborhood that someone might be willing to pay for a service?
Yes.
Right. So getting a job, it could be the teenager getting a summer job outside of the house, which we've always encouraged because sometimes at those teen stages, doing the work in the house it seems that it can be more difficult to motivate. And it's really helpful when they go get a job outside of the house. And now there's some external force that's holding them accountable to doing this work.
Yeah.
So that's another option. Summer projects. This is where, as a family, again, getting the kids to contribute to the life of the family. It might be, hey, one summer project is we've got to paint the bathroom. We got to paint the kitchen. We got to paint the house. I remember growing up and one summer, I think it was like my sophomore year, my parents were like, we're going to paint the house. So we spent a lot of time that, particular month of that summer. I think it took us probably 2 weeks. But we as a family painted the house, saving the family thousands of dollars. A lot of these things we'll just outsource. But looking at different summer projects that might take a little more time as what are the things that we're going to do as a family.
Yeah, I think the biggest way you can squelch this desire to work and for kids to do a lemonade stand or go get a job or offer to pull weeds for a neighbor to earn a little money is if your kids are given everything they want, they will have no desire to work. So you might need to start with stop giving them everything they want, and that will help to fuel the desire to work. If your teenager gets their gas, all their food, their movie tickets, all their clothes they want paid for, they're not going to have a desire to work. But if there are things that they want that they have to earn, then they will have a desire to work. And this is, what we've seen with our kids starting from the lemonade stand or walking a dog for the neighbor kinds of things. So that's what we talked about with reading, some of the things that will backfire in doing that. With work, your kids will be more motivated if they aren't given everything they want. So,
and our theology weighs in on this option as well.
Yeah.
Right. Again, it fits with Genesis 1. We're designed to work. of course, in a consumeristic culture that's oriented around pleasure, that's going to cause you to view work as a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so summer, right? Oh, I'm done with my schoolwork. Summer is all about play. And a Christian view says, no, actually, we should be working all the time because it's actually a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Work is a gift from God. Work has all kinds of benefits from the Lord as well. And you think of like Colossians 3, 23 and 24, where it says, whatever you do your work heartily as for the Lord rather than for men. And so even saying, hey, in our summer job, we honor the Lord in
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And so work is another category we can add. So that gives us 4 key categories to say yes to. And we just brainstormed a bunch of ideas, but families out there can come up with more ideas. This list was to help spark some ideas for you, and take some of our ideas, add some of your own. But you got outdoors, reading, skills and hobbies, and work as 4 big categories to help your kid to say yes to.
Mm-hmm. And if you want other families because it is so helpful if you have other families that do things with you. So their kids, if you want other families whose kids aren't on the screen all summer so that your kids have someone to play with, maybe share this episode with them and say, hey, let's do some of these ideas together this summer and try to make summer probably more similar to how a lot of us grew up, and a summer that isn't just sitting in front of screens, consuming, but actually a summer that brings life to our families, brings goodness into our kids' lives. And when the summer ends, we look back and say, wow, we did a lot of stuff and it was really good, which when you're on screens, you never sit back and look at the time and say, wow, that was really good that we spent most of our days just staring at screens.
Yeah. So help your kids this summer say no to the screen and yes to better, richer, more significant things. MAVEN exists to help the next generation know truth, pursue goodness, and create beauty for the cause of Christ. Through your generous financial partnership with MAVEN, you are having an impact on the lives of students and families across the country. To become a monthly partner, visit maventruth.com and click on the donate button.